Namaskar, good
Yeah,
evening.
yeah.
Salam alaikum. First, I would like to acknowledge that I'm sitting here today on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, and I'm thankful for that. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Supriya Bhattacharya. I'm the current president of the Lower Mainland Bengali Cultural Society, which is a not-for-profit organization, and it was established 43 years ago. It promotes Bengali culture and tries to preserve the Bengali culture in the Lower Mainland area. Tonight's session is the last of a series of 5 lectures, and we are so grateful and thankful that so many knowledgeable people came and shared their knowledge with us. This idea of having the lecture series came from one of our founding members, Dr. Chinmoy Banerjee. Thank you, Chinmoyda. It was a wonderful idea. We have learned a lot, and we really were looking forward to these Saturdays for the last 5 weeks. I would also like to acknowledge the Center for India and South Asia Research UBC for supporting this webinar. Before I introduce our moderator for tonight, I would like to mention 2 names, Dr. Bhaskar Bhattacharya and Dr. Otri Chatterjee. They are the one who are taking care of all the technical part of the webinar. Thank you very much. Bhaskar, can we see your face? We can see Otri. Bhaskar is hidden somewhere. There he is. Bhaskar is also the vice president, and Otri is the cultural secretary. Thank you, guys. So tonight's moderator is Dr. Sanjida Habib. And over to you, Sanjida. And thank you for doing this.
Oh. My pleasure, Shupriyadi, and thank you so much for having me here. It's been really an honor to be part of this very interesting webinar series, right? And also to introduce Mr. Shaheen Reza Noor, who is well known as a learned person and charismatic speaker in the local Greater Vancouver Bengali community. So Mr. Reza Noor is the executive editor of the Daily Ittefaq, which is one of the oldest and leading newspapers in Bangladesh. He is the son of late Mr. Sirajuddin Hussain, an intellectual martyr of Bangladesh. He was abducted by the local collaborators of Pakistani military in the Liberation War of 1971, while working as the executive editor of the same newspaper, the Ittefaq. Mr. Reza Noor started university education with a Bengali honors program in Dhaka University, and in the middle of the program went to Russia for higher studies, but eventually came back disheartened because he was only offered a degree in agronomy when he wanted to pursue journalism. So he completed a master's in English from National University in Dhaka. So as you can see, he's more of a self-taught person with a long and rich career in journalism and activism in mass education and social justice in Bangladesh. He is the president of Projonmo Ekattor, or Generation 71, an organization founded by the children of the martyred in 1971. So that's all I had for his introduction. But before I hand it over to our speaker, just let me remind you the format of this webinar. So basically what will happen, our learned speaker will talk about half an hour or so, and then there will be question and answer session. So please feel free to ask your question. I believe you can ask question while the speech is going on in the chat box. And after the, most likely, if I'm wrong, Bhaskar will correct me, you can also write your question in the question and answer tab that you can see, the logo that you see on the bottom of your screen. And if you don't feel comfortable writing down your questions, just raise hand. You know, there is a sign, you can raise your hand, and Bhaskar will let you, just ask question verbally. So that's all about the format. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our speaker and presenter, Mr. Shaheen Reza Noor.
Thank you very much. Sanjida, and others, Shukriyadi, Bhaskurda, and the other guy. First of all, let me express my gratitude to the organizers of this session, which is definitely a very important and, in my opinion, is very needed as well. And Chinmoyda and others felt this need and organized this thing. And as I have been invited to speak on this subject, and the way Sanjida has introduced me, I must say that I'm not that capable. I'm just ardent reader of Bangla literature. As a journalist, actually, I had to do other things, or had to do other things. But at the same time, I was a student of honors Bangla and took very keen interest in Bengali literature, English literature as well. And that is what actually my interest is. And I thought that maybe I would be able to say a few things about the contribution of Muslim literatures or poets in the colonial period. So, but the problem was I'm physically not well. Some people know it, of course. And that's why I couldn't actually prepare myself thoroughly and properly. But still, whatever I have in my memory, I'll try to deliver. So I hope that if I miss out anything, or if I actually do any sort of big mistake, in that case, the participants or people who are watching would forgive me. That is one earnest request and appeal from my part. Anyway, the subject is very interesting, as we all know, that we, the Bengalis, I mean Bengali speaking people, definitely can boast of one thing, that we have a very, very, rich heritage and culture. And it has a thousands of years of history at its backdrop. And the contribution of the Muslims or Hindus or belonging to the Sanatana Dharma or the Buddhists, basically Bangladesh or the people of Bengal are people of Bengal religiously actually belong to these three great religions. And there are some Christians, of course, and there are other tribal people as well. But these three actually made up the cultural mind of Bengali people. Because Bengal was ruled in the ancient period by the Aryans, by the Buddhists, and thereafter the Muslims. So the religion and the cultural heritage actually that they had or they brought in, so all these things ultimately intermingled and finally gave a shape. And so every people belonging to those religions, those who actually took part in writing or took part in any matters related to cultural advancement, so they all have the contributions. The Muslims, in fact, have a certain sort of contribution in the literature, because when the advent of the Muslims started in India, that was in 13th century, through the Turkish, the conquerors from the Turkish conquerors, when they conquered Bengal, and naturally the rulers, after coming here for administrative reasons or to get things running, introduce their language. And as we know that to communicate with the local people, when some imperialists or some outsiders, they come, as rulers, so naturally they try to impose their creeds, their culture, their thoughts and everything. So when the Turkish conquest happened, afterwards, the first Parsi, the language Farsi or Parsi, we call it, the Parsi became the state language. And thereafter, Arabic was also Arabic also became very much important for the Muslims, because we know that in Hadith it is said that Arabic is because Arabic was the language of Prophet Muhammad himself, and number two, Arabic, according to the Hadith, of course, Arabic is a language which is spoken in heaven. And number three, Quran, the Holy Quran, the scripture for the Muslims that came in Arabic. So that is why actually Arabic is a very important, bears a very important, very important weight that carries for the Muslims. And that is how actually the people who were converted to Islam, they believed in this manner, and it was quite, it should have been that Arabic language, as a language, Arabic should have got much more, priority in the state of affairs, and generally speaking, that the people of the general masses, the people of the belonging to the Muslim creed or Muslim religion, so they will be cultivating this Arabic that was expected. But the interesting thing is that did not happen in India. It happened in North Africa. It happened in other places where Islam actually traveled, or Islam conquerors from the Arabs, they went to those places. There it happened, even in many states belonging to many states of Africa. They had their own, even Egypt. Egypt had their own alphabets, but still, finally, what happened that after the advent of Muslim conquerors, they had to give up their own alphabets and their, cultural, many components of their cultural heritage, and accept Islam. But in India, that did not happen. And why it did not happen? Because it has many historical reasons. I'll try to touch on them. The thing is very clear is Farsi and Arabic, these two languages came or got an entry through literature, particularly in the poetries of Bengal in medieval time, Middle Ages. Middle Ages meaning that was in 15th century, and according to some researchers, some of them claim that it was even in 14th century, but it is established in the 15th, 16th, and 17th century. These 3 centuries, usually Muslim poets had contributed much in 2 forms. One was, many Muslim poets were patronized by the kings, local kings, or the Roshan kings, or the kings of Gaura and other places. They patronized many poets, and there, in the royal courts, what happened? The poets, they translated, as a matter of fact, they translated many stories, from Arabic and from Farsi. But when they translated those stories, most of them were love stories. But the Arabic or Persian love stories, they had, as a matter of fact, a different thing inside, innate thing that was very highly philosophical, and which was nourished and nurtured later on. The legends or the Arabic folklores, whatever they had, when Islam came, so the Islamic philosophers or the Islamic poets, they actually what they did, they reshaped them. they reshaped them and they made those stories. I mean, gave a very high footing to those stories by attributing, philosophical dimensions on it. But when the Bengali poets actually translated those things, they had in their mind that they would also impart those philosophical aspects. But as a matter of fact, that was not possible in the manner the Parsi or the Arabic scholars did. It was not possible because in Bengal, the Muslims, the people who were converted to Islam, so they did not have that sort of deep-rooted culture and cultivation about the about the concept. Say, for an example, the Sufism. I must mention here that Sufism was the philosophical part or thing, which actually the religious people or philosophers of Persia and Arab, so they used to actually cultivate these things. And the Mashuk and Ashik, say for example, loved and the lover. So these two, it is just like, in the Vaishnav Sri Krishna Kirtan or the Vaishnav poets, that we will find the Jivatta and Paramatta sort of thing. I mean, one is a worldly matter, another is the matter of after world sort of things. So the same thing through that, what is that called? That Ashik and Mashuk. This through this concept, actually they made those stories, the folklores and other stories. They gave a very high sort of height, very they reached to a very the height was very high, I must say. So what we find that in 15th century, Shah Muhammad Sagir was a poet, and he was not academically educated, but he was a self-made man, or he developed himself through extensive reading, and he had a he was by born genius, and he learned Parsi, Arabic, Sanskrit, and he was well versed in those languages. So what he did, he translated one book from that was the Persian origin. That was Persian origin, the folk tale. That is Yusuf Julai. I'm sorry. That was from Quran. From the Quran, it was mentioned in the Quran. So he actually took Kitabul Quran. From there, he got this story of a prophet. The name of the prophet was Yaqub. And Yaqub's son, Yusuf, was a very handsome guy. And it is said that he was so wonderful that he did not have any match. So a lady of a merchant, a daughter of a merchant, Zulaikha, she fell in love with Yusuf. She dreamt 3 times that she is going to marry the most beautiful person, beautiful male of the world. But what happened? Actually, by mistake, she married she was married to the king of Egypt. And later on, she comes to know that she did a mistake. So that was the story of the Quran, but the Quranic dimension of this story was basically a philosophical matter. But when Shah Muhammad Sagir wrote or translated, translation means not word for word. Actually, he took the story and reshaped it in Bangla, but a lot of Arabic and Farsi words were used in his version. And Imam Ghazali, a very big philosopher, of Islamic world. So he also mentioned about this Yusuf Zulekha story in his various writings, and which actually inspired Muhammad Sagir as well. So what Muhammad Sagir did, Sagir wrote on this Yusuf Zulekha thing, and his writing did not only contain the matters that was said in the Quran. Rather, he actually, while reshaping the whole thing, he also borrowed some components, some ideas, and some styles and everything from the indigenous sources as well. That was Sanskrit to some extent. That was Bangla, which was already there. So all these things actually contributed in his contributed in his writing. So Yusuf Zulekha, I'm not going to the whole story, but the thing is that Yusuf Zulekha was the first one, which is apparently a translated work, but basically it was a new, it brought or gave a new dimension to Bangla literature, because his work did not reach to that height, that philosophical height, of course, but it became a worldly matter, a love story between a man and a woman. Though he tried his utmost to give it a philosophical, philosophical. He tried his utmost to make it a very high philosophical story. But because of the lackings that the Bengal poets had, and only a few generations back, actually, the people who were converted in Islam, they did not have that much ability. Ability to reach that height, because it requires a long sadhana, long sadhana, generation to generation sadhana, and very difficult thing as well. So in 1-2 generations, it was not possible. That is how the researchers actually assessed that way. And that is why not only Muhammad Sagir's work, but also Bahram Khan, another poet. He was a great poet too, and he was from East Bengal, and he also was a poet of the royal court. He was also a finance minister for the king of Chotola. Chotola is the Chittagong, which is Chittagong area now in East Bengal or Bangladesh now. So he wrote about Laili Majnu. Laili Majnu is a story. It is a worldwide renowned story, and its origin is Arabic, and it was translated into Farsi by very great poets like Jami and other people, and also the Indian poets like Amir Khusro. He also translated it in Farsi in India. So Bahram Khan took up this story, and he reshaped Laili Majnu as well. What I am actually trying to mention is that these Arabic and Persian stories from the Arabic and Persian sources started to pour into our language through the Muslims, and because language, we know that Arabic, as I said earlier, that Arabic was so important for the Muslims, so they had a respect for the language, and they believed that whatever is Arabic, that is Islamic. And the other thing is, in Persia was a place which was culturally, you all know that its height was very high, and that's why the Arabic language, when Arabs physically conquered Persia, they couldn't actually conquer Persia culturally. Rather, Arabians got reconquered culturally by the Persians. So Persian language, Persian tradition, and the people of Persia were very much, tradition oriented, and they were very fond of their own culture. So that is why actually Arab as a language, Arabic could not actually penetrate into Persian culture or Persian language. So it was very rich. Persian language was very rich. And that's why what happened, that Persians saw that whatever Islam wants to say, or Islam preaches, or projects, everything can be done through Parsi language. It can be done. We don't need to take another language for this thing, or Arabic is not at all needed for this. So they maintained that, and that is how, when the conquerors from different Muslim countries, particularly the Lodhis, the Khiljis, the successors of the Lodhi, Khilji, and the Chengiz Khan as well. So when their successors or the dynasties came from them, so naturally, I mean, they brought this Arabic, Parsi, or their culture and everything. And Muslims, only few generations back, most of the Muslims here of Bengal were basically, I mean, the low caste Hindus, as we know, and they were, because of persecution, because of I mean, because of the class system, rigorous class system, and persecution, and also because of the tortures by the high caste or high caste Hindus. So these people felt always very much helpless, and that is why they converted themselves in Buddhism first. And then when Islam came, naturally, and Shankaracharya was there again, I mean, through Shankaracharya, the Aryan culture or the Hindu religion, Sanatana Dharma, really started reviving or getting a new shape, new strength and everything. So these people who were converted, they naturally became scared, and they thought that when the new religion came, so they, I mean, en bloc, they were found to convert themselves into another new religion. But the thing is that Muslim religion, Islam, when it came to Arabia was a land for the nomads, all. So, but Islam there actually came as a social revolution, and it completely changed everything. The thoughts, culture, creed, and lifestyle, and everything. It had the great ability and great power in it when Islam came. So naturally, what happened, that the people of Arab, they got or could reach to a high peak very soon. But when it came to India, what we find here, it's very amazing that when the Umayyads, I mean the Umayyad Caliphate or Abbasid Caliphates or the Fatimids, they ruled Baghdad or North Africa or Spain. I mean, there we will find that Islam was there. I mean, the Islamic philosophers, the scientists, they had so wonderful contribution, which actually brought forth the renaissance of Europe even. I mean, the ingredients and components actually came through them. So Islam there was not only a mere religion of practicing the outside or outward things of a culture, but the inner thing, the mysterious part, the very inner thing of the philosophy, that actually got very, that got speed in Persia, in Arab, and whenever the Islamic warriors or the Islamic rulers, they moved or they went, with them, we find that science, culture, philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, they also flourished in the same manner. But India, what we saw, India, I mean, I'm saying particularly about Bengal, not in Lucknow or in northern India, because in northern India or in Lucknow or in Delhi, the rulers, the Islamic rulers or the Muslim rulers who came, they had a relationship with the local people. I mean, socially they had a relationship, and financially, of course, economically, these people were more or less trade, commerce, and everything were rather stronger. And that's why, actually, because when a new religion comes or a new concept comes, to adapt that, you require certain sort of mindset, as well as you require some certain sort of establishment as well. So that is what the Muslims of Delhi or the Muslims of Lucknow they had this thing, so they could mix quite easily with the rulers. Say, for example, that the British people, the Anglo-Indians, or the Dhaka, we call them Kuttis, the Dhakai people. I mean, originally those who come from Dhaka. So these Dhaka people had a very easygoing relationship with the Nawabs of Dhaka, and the Anglo-Indians had very easygoing relationship with the British, and that's why language, I mean, English language, or here the Arabic or Urdu. The Nawabs actually used to speak in Urdu in Dhaka. So the Dhakaya people, they easily actually got themselves equipped with Urdu as well, apart from Bangla. But in other parts of Bengal, it didn't happen because the people mostly belong to the peasantry. Number one. Number two, economically, they were not that strong. And the rulers who actually came to Bengal and ruled the Bengali people, they did not have the ability, or maybe they did not want it even, to mix with the local people. So all these things, if are taken into consideration, then we will see that these are the things for which the Arabic or Persian language did not thrive the way actually it thrived in other places where Islam went. So in Bengal, when these poets, I mean Bahram Khan, through that story of Laili Majnu is it's a tragic story, like Romeo and Juliet. Laili and Majnu loves each other and they are mad for each other, but because of many social reasons, many prejudice and other things, so they couldn't marry each other. So here Laili and Majnu, the very word Majnu means Baiju Baura se Baura, I mean a lunatic person, I mean who not getting his lover or his who he actually wanted, he didn't get her, and that is why he becomes a mad. So here actually this Laili and Majnu are symbolically I mean depicted or projected as the God and a human being sort of things, so or Atta Paramata, whatever you call it. So these are in Laili Majnu, this is the main thing. Philosophically, this is the main thing. And though it was a pre-Islamic, I mean a story of pre-Islamic time, Arabian folk tale, but the Islamic philosophers or the poets actually gave it this depth and dimension. And this thing is very subtle. I mean, this philosophy, the Sufism is very subtle, is very deep. So it is not easy to actually adapt or get in touch with it. It's very, very difficult. You need lot of practice for this thing, and you have to give up many things. So many things are there. So in Bengal, actually, that didn't happen. But the poets, as a matter of fact, they had in their mind to make the new Bengali Muslims. I mean, they wanted that the Bengali Muslims become Muslims like the Arabians or like the Persians. But they tried, of course, they tried, but socially, or because of the background, because of the cultural matters which were prevailing before Islam's, before Islam came here in Bengal. So all these things actually made or created hindrance for their advancement. So many factors were there, But the poets, those who were getting patronization from the royal, kings, rulers of different parts of Bengal. So they had a taste, or they had their, they were more, that is called the city-based. They were very much city-based. So they did not have the contact, easygoing contact with the local masses. But the local masses, most of the Muslims, Bengal Muslims, were very poor or low-paid employees or small business people. They were great in number. So this Laili Majnu or the Sharif Farhad or Yusuf Julekha, so this kind of stories or this kind of translations or the way actually the poets try to project these things, and also their effort to give it a dimension, a philosophical dimension. So these things could not or did not satisfy the local people, because they were a bit, you need a bit of intellect, bit of education and cultural mind as well to get into those things. So another section of writers, of poets emerged in Bengal among the Muslims. They were called Puthi, Puthi literature, that is called Puthi Sahitya or Puthi literature. Puthi, the word itself is, the word means actually books. So Puthi, it was written in Dobhashi. It was called Dobhashi language. Dobhashi means that not only in Bangla, it was a mixture of various languages, which contained words from various languages. So various languages means here Urdu, Hindi, Sanskrit, of course, to some extent, and Arabic Farsi. So the Muslims were writing it, so naturally Arabic and Farsi things got priority in their writings. But the Puthi literature, as a matter of fact, they were not very high quality literature at all, because it was completely imaginary and defying the historical facts or the character of the, say for example, a warrior or a prophet or a saint of Islamic order. So they were depicted in a manner as if he was a warlord, he was someone that he would never be defeated, number one, and he will marry like the 19th century Kulin Brahman, or say, so his job is to marry. And here, when we go through the Puthi, say for example, Shahid Karbala or Janganama, they are the names of the Puthi, Shonaban or Gunai Bibi. See, in all this Puthi, you will find that all impossible, fairy, fantastic things, unrealistic things are there. And those unrealistic things have been attributed to the characters of Islam, very big people of Islam, who historically, there are evidences that these people were not of that nature at all. Say Sayyid Hamza, there is the Puthi on Sayyid Hamza. So in Janganama, the name of the Puthi. So there we will find that Amir Hamza, he has been depicted as a warrior. His job is only to fight against the Kafirs. Kafir meant a Hindu, a Hindu is a Kafir. A Hindu meant a Kafir meant a Hindu. That is how actually the Muslim poets of those days, the Puthi literatures, would see them in this manner. So he would not be defeated, rather he will just conquer each and everyone, even he will conquer the land of the demons. Kokaf was the land for the demons, and he went there, he crushed everybody. But historically, it is known that he never went out of Arabia, out of Makkah or Medina, and he embraced martyrdom at a war called Uhud, the War of Uhud, it is called, in Medina, and he died over there. But he, or the even the Caliph Hazrat Ali, the son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad, he and his son from the second marriage, Hanifa, he's called a hero, Hanifa. So they were also depicted in a manner which history or historical facts do not permit or do not accept.
And by,
But
sorry to interrupt. So it's been a little over 30 minutes. So if you could wrap up now.
oh, okay,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So I'm actually trying to say this thing, that the Muslims, after, I mean, Islam came to India, they tried in all manners to make their religion greater, and in the making process, they took up pains, I mean, through literature and sculpture and many other ways. It is quite natural that they tried their utmost. But in Bengal, the poets patronized by the royalties, royal courts, they did a lot of job, and this contribution actually has a very importance. It bears very great importance, because this kind of works were not found before in Bengal. The Mangal Kabbas or other, they were like the present day, propaganda literature sort of thing. Not only the Mangal Kabba, even Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, we call it, and all these puthis, they're like the propaganda literature. But still, this sort of works gave the Muslim a feeling that they should do this, they should not do that, or this is how actually they should live their life, and blah blah blah. So all these things actually were very important, and the philosophy that the poets like Bahram Khan, Jainuddin, then Sayyid Sultan, Nasrullah Khan, many other poets actually tried to, Muhammad Sagir wanted to give. They worked to some extent, of course they worked, and people enjoyed the very high quality literary flavor, and not only it was because of Arabic and because of the introduction of Arabic and Farsi words or vocabularies in it, but rather because of the ideas, because of the reshaping, because of their merit, because of their uniqueness. So all these things actually ultimately mattered. So Muslims had a contribution from 15, 16, 17, before the colonial period, of course. They had contribution in this manner, and all the historians, I mean, those who worked on Bengali language, they have appreciated this thing, that a new dimension, a very new dimension was introduced by the Muslims in this way, and the Bengali language having the influx of vocabularies, words, syntax from other languages as well. Urdu, Hindi, they also actually had a part in it. So that is how the Muslims contributed. I think because I am already, my time is already over, that's why I'm wrapping up.
Yeah, thank you. We can have some conversation now, right? So thank you so much. I just wonder if you would like to, before we open the floor for question and answer, if you'd like to take a sip of water or anything, because I know that, I'm really, like, we're all really very grateful to you. You are fighting against a chronic condition. So I just, want to acknowledge that and thank you especially, doing this for us despite your physical condition. So really appreciate that. So the question and answer session is starting now. So please feel free to type your question or raise your hand if you have any question for our speaker.
So there is a question from Chima Banerjee, and I'm going to unmute him. Chima, you can ask your question.
Sure. I would love to make some comments and question, but I don't want to take up other people's time. I want to hear what other people have to ask. And then I plead with you to give me a little time to ask my question. So I'll just, basically putting my number in, okay?
Okay, so you're going to ask later.
Yeah, I'll ask later.
Okay.
I don't see any more question yet, so feel free to ask it now. Yeah, I think it's fine. Oh, okay, sure.
আমার খুব সহজ কোশ্চেন, এই যে পুঁথি লিটারেচার, how can I read it? Is it available somewhere in Vancouver, the Dovashi, or is it online? Can I get?
I think that if you visit the Central Library, they must possess some of them. I'm sure.
The Vancouver Central Library.
Yeah. If you contact them, they will be able to provide you with some Puthi scriptures, I'm sure.
Who are the authors of this Puthi literature?
Oh yeah. Actually, it was initiated by Garibullah, Fakir Garibullah. He was the main person, and he had a disciple named Hamza. His name was Hamza, Sayyid Hamza. So these two people actually introduced this thing, and thereafter many poets afterwards started writing Puthis. So Puthis, Sonaban, Jagun Bibi, and about the Karbala, Shahid Karbala, the Karbala, you know, that where Hussein was killed. So these were basically counterpart, sort of counterpart of when Ali was placed, Hazrat Ali was placed, or Amir Hamza was placed. So they were placed as the counterparts of Rama, Lakhana, Yudhishthir, or Arjuna. So they had, the new Muslims had in their mind, they couldn't forget, but they did not want that the idol worshippers, the idol worshipping and sort of things were very much, forbidden in Islam. So that's why they wanted to get out of it, but at the same time they were not able to get out mentally. So they try to, foment a sort of envy or a sort of hatred against the idol worshippers.
Okay. So the script of this Puthi literature, is it Bengali?
It is Bengali. It is Bengali, but it has a lot of Arabic and Persian words in it.
Yes.
Lot of Persian, Hindi, Urdu, full of them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And that helped actually the local inhabitants. To actually get themselves acquainted with the different vocabularies of different languages. That definitely gave a special sort of, I must say, that speed to the advancement of our language as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I see one question.
Can I ask?
Sorry?
Can I now ask my question?
Oh, okay, sure, absolutely.
First of all, I'll pick up on this Puthi question, which is, it is fascinating because what you are just describing is really the work of fantasy, the work of peasant fantasy, how the peasant fantasy appropriates historical religious material and constructs purely fantastic fiction in order to satisfy certain desires. So I'm not sure that it is entirely a matter of sort of anti-Hindu or kind of a thing, but what the element of what desires fantasy satisfies would require a whole different kind of, I think, theoretical understanding in terms of reading of literature. So I find this very interesting, but very complex. But it actually kind of contrasts with what I've been hearing lately. Tirthankar Bose just introduced me lately to some palas, which are fascinating in terms of their ecumenism. I mean, one thing that I've been dealing with is the way they completely, they talk about the mix, what is called one kind of Hindu and Muslim equally, and show reverence towards both.
Mhm.
So that, and it exists simultaneously at the same time as this, right? So there is that dimension there, and that is popular. That is popular literature. In popular literature, a total intermingling of a kind of a Sanatan uh, dharma, worshipping of say Kailash and sun, along with the reverence to Makkah and Quran and Ali. So this is so it exists simultaneously, this stuff. So that is one comment I have. It's very interesting to me. The other thing is this. So you talk about the blending and the Sufi things. I mean, Sufi influence in Bengal is huge. I mean, Sufis, after all, were responsible for opening large tracts of Bengal and establishing dargahs and so on. And I think what I notice in number one, their impact on the Baul beat. So the Bauls who bring together both Vaishnav and Sufi. That's, I'd like to comment on that. And I find a parallel of that also with what is going on in the courts of the sultans, because the sultans were patronizing Vaishnavas.
Yeah.
So the Vaishnav literature in Bengal was flourishing quite a lot because of the patronage of the sultans. So there's Muslims who are writing Vaishnav literature,
Yeah.
writing about Radha. And I find that in Najrul is full of, Nilambori Shari Pori Nil Jamunai Ke Jai.
Not only that, Nazrul wrote many Shama Sangits as well.
Shama Sangit.
Yeah.
He wrote Shama Sangit. He writes
Kirtan.
Vaishnav, and this is a tradition. This is the whole tradition coming from the Sultanate days, in which Muslim poets write Hindu poetry, quote unquote Hindu poetry, right? And at the same time, at the popular level, we are dealing with this absolute ecumenism. The ecumenism that I find in Ramakrishna, I find earlier in this popular poetry. Is profound ecumenism, profound openness and intermixture of Muslim and Hindu. So this is my comment. And other thing, that comment I had, observation regarding Laila Majnu. Now the thing is, Laila Majnu, Heer Ranjha, all these things are absolutely, of course, they're Sufi. I mean, these are love tradition, but the love tradition is a part of the same thing that is happening in India in the Bhakti tradition, and we find so much in the Vaishnava tradition, right?
Yeah.
Which is why they can come together so easily. The Sufi love, but what I find interesting is that you said that it did not catch on among the people, the ordinary people. In Punjab, the peasants love, one of the basic parts of Punjabi culture is Heer Ranjha. Heer Ranjha, Shah Latif, a Sufi, created Heer Ranjha, which is absolutely everywhere, is basically national part of the Punjabi identity. And it's sung by peasants everywhere. So Laila Majnu and Heer Ranjha, all these things are totally penetrated into Punjabi peasant culture. So why not in Bengal?
Oh, that is very interesting. In Bengal, actually, I was talking about that phase, that is 15th, 16th, or 17th century. But later on, as a matter of fact, actually, in the intermingling of three great religions, finally, what it gave, Buddha Dharma has a unique thing, that to love everybody, right? To love everybody, no violence, nothing of the sort. So this is one thing which actually definitely created a very great impact on the Bengalis, number one. Number two, the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas, I mean, the Bhakti Rush actually that they spread, that also created a very great impact. And on the other hand, the Sufis. Sufis also came, as you said, the Sufis also had almost the same similar kind of thing in mind. So all these things, when intermingled together, ultimately made definitely it actually made our mind to be secular. I mean, most of the people in Bengal are definitely secular. Some people are actually trying to create problems everywhere in the world. I mean, they are trying to create problems, not only the Muslims, but other, I mean, fundamentalists are also doing the same thing. But in Bengal, what we find, the most interesting thing is that in the recent, I mean, the recent activities of the fundamentalists or the extremists, religious extremists, I mean, so when they try to create problems in Bangladesh, in particular, but they couldn't survive long. They couldn't sustain because the very mentality or we, the Bengalis, do not believe in extremism. And it was possible because of these three religions, you know, basic philosophy that we have to love human being. A human being is the main thing, and particularly in Sanatana Dharma, it is the same thing. Sanatana Dharma, it always admires, you know, the human being, and all the gods and goddesses are coming to earth in the fashion of human being, in the form of human being, and they are suffering, they are doing, they have lust, they have greed, they have love, affection, and everything that a human being has, right? So all these things, actually, all these things made this Bengal and Indian culture a unique one, completely different, because here we have always been trying to be emancipated. I mean, Islam also says the same thing. I must say that Islam has one thing in mind, whatever might be the outward or apparent, you know, dictums. But the thing is that Islam says that you have to go to the heaven the way actually the mullahs or the clergy people, they say, but philosophically it is not that thing, and it is also same with the Sanatana Dharma. So that is one thing that in Punjab you say, or in Bengal, or wherever you go in India. Basically, the people of India are very tolerant. India, I mean, including Bangladesh, of course, they are tolerant, and they believe that religious violence should not get priority. But when these religions started, say after the Hinduism, after the Buddhism, I mean, when Buddhists came, so naturally there was a conflict between the Buddhists and the Hindus. There were fights, there were wars, and Buddhists were driven out from India. And when the Muslims came, so naturally the Hindus, they got scared that there might be again, I mean, the new Muslims. I'm sorry, the Buddhists who were converted from Hinduism to Buddhism, they thought that now again we will be in trouble. So a new religion came and they got themselves involved in that religion. But the mindset of the general general Muslims of Bengal, that was not that ripe. I mean, that ripe, that the depth of the religion, the philosophy of the religion, the way the Iranians got from Islam, or other people having long heritage, long history of civilization, that they inherited whatever they inherited, and when it mixed up with the Islamic philosophy, then it could give or bring forth new ideas, new things, and science, technology, the philosophy, all these things change. They change this thing. But in India, the Indian Muslim could hardly change this thing, particularly in Bengal, Lucknow, or in northern India. Yes, some Muslims could do it because, as I said, that it was because the rulers, those who came from outside, the Muslim rulers, I mean, so they had a very easygoing relationship with the local population. But Bengal Muslims could not actually establish that sort of a relationship or bridge. And there are reasons for it. There are many factors are there. And basically the Aryans, this class system brought in by the Aryans, that was the root of all evils. I mean, creating this discrimination, creating this hatred or apartheid, whatever you call it. So all these things, the root is there. We sometimes blame British people, we say that British actually used this, Hindu-Muslim problem. They used it for their own benefit. But the very existence of this hatred or of this, difference lies with those, what is that called? This class system. They undermine the lower caste people so much, and they did not even consider themselves to be human beings, and that's why they got themselves, converted. They got themselves converted. But after hundreds of years of cultivation, after hundreds of years of, very many big Sufis came here, many big monks, many big religious people from the Vaishnavas and Vaishnava concepts and others, philosophies and others, they came. And so all these things actually started to work. And that mattered. Ultimately, that mattered. That is how actually I see it.
Okay, Shaheen Bhai, thank you. We have a couple of questions. I think they are kind of related, so I will read them together, and probably you can answer the two questions together. So the first one is from Bashar. Are most of the works of the Muslim poets of that time translations, or there are original works as well? And the second question, so the second question is kind of, related, linked to the first one. Shourab Reza, he's asking that Mr. Reza Noor mentions that when literary works or poems were being reshaped or being translated into Bengali, Farsi words were used in them. Would it be possible to give some examples of it?
Please repeat this question, please.
Yeah.
Second part of the question.
The second one?
No, the second part of the question. The last part of the second question.
Yeah, the second part. So the first question is, he wants to know whether, if you can give some examples of Farsi words that were used in the translated, work in Bengali. So if you could, would it be possible to give some examples of the Farsi words that were used in the work translated into Bengali, originally from Arabic or Farsi? Yeah.
Okay.
So and the first question was, was there any work that were original?
Oh yeah, all right, yeah.
Rather than a translation. Yeah.
Thank you very much to the questioners. Yeah, original means actually the Muslim works of 16th, 17th century or 15th century. They were, the stories were adapted from outside. Outside means not only from Arab and Iran and Arab, Persia and Arab, but also from India as well. Say for example, Vidyadhar. Vidyadhar was a Hindu poet, but Balid Shah was a poet of 15th century, 16th century. So Balid Shah and Vidyadhar both wrote about Vidya Sundar. Vidya Sundar is a very famous, tale or story of India. So they took the story from there, and they translation means not word for word translation. The story was taken from there. Then they reshaped it. They gave new dimension. They tried to give it a new dimension. So Shiri Farhad or Gule Bakwali, or say Gule Bakwali or Saiful Mulk Badiuzamal. Saiful Mulk Badiuzamal was a story from Alif Laila, but Gule Bakwali was an Indian story. Madhu Malati was an Indian story. So these poets, and not only poets that I mentioned, not only them, but minimum 200 years before them, actually the Hindu poets also introduced or used Arabic and Farsi words in their verses also. When their verses contained anything relating to Islam or relating to this religion, so they used words of Arabic and Farsi. They did it. So it was nothing new. But during the Muslim rule, or during the when the Muslims started ruling Bengal, at that time, as the language, state language became Farsi, and the religion was in Arabic. So naturally, these two languages got a different, appeal for the to the Muslims. So that is how new words started coming in, pouring in, and also usage of that. And you know that when East India Company, the employees of East India Company started to come to Bengal, I mean, during the, after the Mughal period, so Parsi was the official language still. So what happened that they had to attend many seminars in London to equip themselves with the Persian language as well, so that they can be they can do their job easily. Later on, in 19th century, with the establishment of Fort William or William Carey's moves and other things, and the educational policy of British government, all these things changed the whole thing. Then the Arabic and Parsi words, or using of Arabic and Parsi words, at one stage it was considered to be very high quality and good quality literature. Even Bharat Chandra also said that it is a mixed Muslim language. That is how actually he termed it. Mixed Muslim language, Jaban. They used to call Muslims as Jaban. So Jaban mixture, they say. It's a new kind of language. But he said that this mixture has not given it a very literary height, but still it is a usage language. It is a working language. Had British did not come, say had British not come to India, then this Parsi, Arabic, Bangla, Urdu, Hindi, and all the mixture of this language might be that would be the main force of the Bengali literature. But in 19th century, when say Bankim Chandra, Madhusudan, or Rabindranath, or others, Ramahan Vidyasagar, when they came and British gave a different policy, so naturally the chaste language, chaste Bangla started to thrive in. The second thing is about the word. The Khuda is a word, Khuda is a word. Namaz is a word. They're Parsi words. Khuda Hafiz is a Parsi word. Darwaza is a Parsi word. So Darji is a Parsi word. Darji. We use Darji. So many things came from Persia, because Islam actually came here through Persia. So Persia had a very high reputed, philosophical matter, Sufism. That is what Chinmay Dada was referring to. That here the Sufism was one of the main. They played one of the main role preaching Islam, and they had their followers, or they had their disciples from all the religious, belonging to all the religious sections of people.
There is a hand up from Archana Datto. I'm going to ask her to.
Yeah, before we go there, I know that we have a little bit of time, so I just have a quick question, if you don't mind, because the question of translation came, and I'm wondering, I think this translation, are we mainly referring to like oral translation or written translation? Because to my knowledge, I think was written language that prominent at that time, or was it mostly oral?
No, they are all written. I mean,
they're all written. Okay.
Yeah, written. That Shiri Farhad.
Okay.
This is the story of Arabic origin, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm asking about the Bengali. Like, was the Bangla written, or we had Bangla written form at that time? Or?
No. It was in Farsi. So the Bengali poets actually translated them into Bangla using a lot of Farsi and Arabic words. Yeah. And also what they did, not only they translated that original one, they were not even, say a folk tale. Folk tale was translated from an Arabic folk tale was translated by an Indian Farsi speaking poet like Amir Khusru, and also was the same one was also translated in Iran, in Persia, by Jami or Jamir. They translated it, and from Hindi, from Sanskrit, lot of translation work was there, and even Meghnad Baz of Michael Madhusudan, it was translated in various South Indian languages as well. So that was a very common thing. But the Muslims actually first started to translate the works of people from far
outside of India.
Yeah. That is what they did. And these kind of stories, I mean, using religion and a man and woman's love story. So when they made, because Islam, has some sort of conservative.
Conservatism, yeah.
Yeah, so it was not that easy, but they brought in, because these stories were very interesting to and enjoyable.
And as well, right?
And
Yeah.
people wanted that.
Yeah.
And the Puthi Shahitya was very much, enjoyed by the common people, because they wanted this kind of things to enjoy, to relax. They could not take very serious things in their mind. So these were easygoing things, and they believed that, okay, if Ram was there, Ram was such a big man. Hazrat Ali, from Islamic side, he was a big man too. A comparison was also actually placed by the writers as well. Yeah. That is how the religion was preached.
Thank you. So yeah, please, Bhaskarda, please give the
give
access to Archanadi. Yeah.
Yes. So Archanadi, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaheen. My question is a very simple one. You have been telling us about Urdu, Farsi, and Islamic language. And I understood from this talk that Urdu and Farsi comes from Persia. Am I right?
Yeah, Persia, right.
Okay, and there is no Parsi language. There is another language called Parsi. Is there another language called Parsi?
Farsi, in Bangla it is called Farsi. Farsi
Okay,
is language.
okay. So Urdu and Farsi, they are the language of more educated and high-minded people. And when these peoples like Puthi Shahitya came, then it amalgamated all kinds of Urdu, Parsi, and Hindi, Sanskrit, and all this. Is that the language called Islamic language?
No. It's not called Islamic language. Arabic was called Islamic language because Quran actually came in Arabic. Muhammad himself, his mother tongue was Arabic. I mean, according to Hadith, it is not a compulsory thing. According to Hadith, it was said that since Muhammad spoke Arabic and Quran came in Arabic, and also the language of the heaven will be Arabic. So you should learn Arabic. That is how actually Muslims were motivated by certain section of religious preachers. That is the thing. But it was not Islamic language. There is no language called Islamic or Hindu, or language is like a river, isn't it? So that is not the thing. And Urdu, yeah.
But so this Puthi language, Puthi Shahitya, they use almost any language they can introduce into it, right? And who are the main writer of this Puthi Shahitya? Who are they?
Actually, Garibullah, as I said, Fakir Garibullah was the main person. He was the initiator. He started this, and he had many followers. And one of his main disciples was Hamza, Mr. Hamza. So they wrote about. There were 6 kinds of Puthis, as a matter of fact. There were 6 kinds of Puthis, and some dealt with, say, the life of the saints and the prophets. Some dealt with love stories, having some religious flavor. Some wrote about the wars that talk about the victory of Islamic warriors or Muslim warriors. So this kind of, there were categories of Puthis. But the Puthi, as because the language which was common in 24 Pargana, 24 Pargana, or Calcutta, or again in Hooghly, in Howrah. So in those areas, it is found that in those areas, Muslims, the language that the Muslims meaning here the low-paid say employees, or the workers, or the daily laborers. So for their own relaxation, for their own enjoyment and everything, they needed something. So this need was fulfilled by the Puthi Sahitya, I mean the writers, and at the same time the Puthi writers had one thing in their mind, that the new religion, that is Islam, it should also have a very deep penetration into the mind of the Muslims. So that is why actually what they did, that they gave they shaped the characters, Islamic characters, though historically those characters were not like that, but their imagination made them such human beings, such people, as if they were not human beings. They were aliens. They came from outside. So these fantasies actually, to a great extent, boosted up many of the new Muslims, and they believed in that, because religion, literature actually is a combination, as a matter of fact, of experience and faith. So faith and imagination, all these things when combined together, so they bring about new things, new concepts, new ideas, and I mean, also they can produce good things. I mean, good things meaning better things. So that is what actually the Puthi Sahitya, those who are dealing with these things, they try to impart. They try to impart, believing that this is Islam. And as I said, that counterparts were needed for them. Counterparts of Ram, Lakhan, they needed. So naturally, they, I mean, reshaped these characters like Hamza, like Hussein, like Muhammad himself, or Hazrat Ali, and others in this fashion. No.
What kind of language is?
Pardon?
What kind of language is Bangladeshi people use today?
Oh, Bangladesh. We actually in Bangladesh use Bangla, of course Bangla, but we have a
Yes.
lot of words. I mean, while writing Bangla, lot of words come from other sources as well. Say for an example, when you write iljam is a Urdu word, and আমার উপরে ইলজাম চাপিও না, মানে আমাকে এই মিথ্যা দোষ দিও না বা মিথ্যা ইলজাম চাপিও না, মিথ্যা ভাবে আমাকে। So these words were during the Pakistan period, for 23 years, Urdu and Bangla, you know about the story of Urdu-Bangla conflict. So Pakistanis were the West Pakistanis were the ruling class, they were ruling us. So naturally, in our literature, in our other spheres of art and culture, so they introduced many words like that. So they are already now accepted. Many I mean, Farsi words, many Arabic words are also accepted, but not much.
That is a natural evolution of from the past to today.
Yeah.
Can that be said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
And that is why the language used in the West Bengal literature and in Bangladesh literature has a I mean difference. There is a gap. I mean, though yes, we read West Bengal. I mean, literature from the West Bengal writers. They are very rich, no doubt about it. They are very rich. We like them, and now I think that difference is gradually it is fading away.
Diminishing? Yeah.
It is fading away for sure.
I'd say, yeah. I think, we have like spent 20 minutes, almost 20 minutes after 8 o'clock. And I was given this permission that we can go a little over time because we don't have to leave the room or anything. So Shupriyadi, over to you now. Yeah, you can. Thank you so much. Yeah, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanjida. Thank you. The wonderful job, and thank you, Shaheen Bhai. It was great, the talk. আর ভীষণ ভালো লাগলো, and I just want to tell you that this webinar is viewed from different parts of Canada, America, India, and I believe today Bangladesh as well.
So, I think so. Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah.
But Didi, one thing, I was not that prepared, as I told you. because of my health ground mainly.
Yes.
So I don't know how actually I could satisfy with that at all. I was able to
It was
satisfy
very
you or not.
interesting. After each talk, we have more and more questions, and I think we are going to pursue our own research on this. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And this concludes our webinar series, The Precolonial Culture of Bengal.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all, and thanks to all of you who attended.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Good night, Shubharatri, Khuda Hafiz.
Yes, Bhaskar da, Sanjida.
Thank you.
And Didi,
Thank you, everyone.
and Chimada and everybody.
Right, খুব ভালো হয়েছে।
Yeah.
Okay.
So very satisfied.
Very much so.
Very satisfied. Don't ask.
I don't know why a lot of the speakers, I heard another speaker
Yeah,
or two speakers asking the same question. Yeah.
Also said
I
that.
think we are very thankful. Yes, of course. Yeah.
What is your impression?
Very good. Very good.
Your impression was okay.
I think Rajiv had a question, interesting question. Rajiv বলছিল যে আপনাকে কেন ইংরেজিতে বলতে বলা হচ্ছে, কারণ আপনার বাংলা আরো অনেক বেশি সুন্দর, ফ্রি ফ্লোয়িং রিচ বাংলা আর কি, আপনাকে কেন ইংরেজিতে বলতে দেওয়া হচ্ছে সেটা ওর প্রশ্ন ছিল। আসলে
বাংলায় তো প্রিপারেশন নিছিলাম।
No, but আমি রাজীবকে answer করেছি।
I noticed. For everybody. Just a technical issue, right? It's nothing, nothing like to আমাদের আসলে এটা broaden করার জন্য আমাদের যে মানে অডিয়েন্সটা এটা যাতে আরো মানে
other people who are watching and they don't speak Bangla. This is for public education to begin with.
Yeah.
We had presenters who were not Bengalis. So this is
we had presenters, non-Bengali as well. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bhaskar, you can end the meeting now.
Yes.